Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudidiyat Nashtuprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So today we are starting Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Srila Goswami. This is to understand, of course, there are so many biographies about Prabhupada written by his different disciples based on their experiences with Prabhupada. But Satsvarup Maharaj, he did extensive research work after Prabhupada left. He talked to pretty much every devotee and anybody who Prabhupada met during his stay, whether in America or Europe or India. So he interviewed them, traveled, interviewed them, and if they had any communication with Prabhupada, so Satsuru Maharaj took a copy of it. So very, very extensive work he did. And also based on his talks with Prabhupada, the other devotees talk with Prabhupada about Prabhupada's time before he came to West. So that also he listed here. And so that is why these books, I mean, I think there are 3 books in this. So he covered a lot actually. So let's start. So chapter 1, childhood. So the book volume is called A Lifetime in Preparation in India, 1896 to 1965. So starting with childhood. Prabhupada had told maybe Satsvarup Maharaj or some other devotee sometimes that we would be sleeping and father would be doing arati. Ding, 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 we would hear the bell and wake up and see him bowing down before Krishna. So it was Janmashtami, the annual celebration of the advent of Lord Krishna, some 5,000 years before. Residents of Calcutta, mostly Bengalis and other Indians, but also many Muslims and even some British, were observing the festive day, moving here and there through the city streets to visit the temples of Lord Krishna. Devout Vaishnavas, fasting until midnight, chanted Hare Krishna and heard about the birth and activities of Lord Krishna from Srimad Bhagavatam. They continued fasting, chanting, and worshipping throughout the night. The next day, September 1, 1896, in a little house in the Toliganj suburb of Calcutta, a male child was born. Since he was born on Nandotsav, the day Krishna's father, Nanda Maharaj, had observed a festival in honor of Krishna's birth. The boy's uncle called him Nandula. So it wasn't his official name, but his uncle called him Nandula. But his father, Gaur Mohan De, and his mother, Rajani, named him Abhay Charan, one who is fearless, having taken shelter at Lord Krishna's lotus feet. In accordance with Bengali tradition, the mother had gone to the home of her parents for the delivery. And so it was that on the bank of the Adi Ganga, a few miles from his father's home, in a small 2-room, mud-walled house with a tiled roof, underneath a jackfruit tree, Abhecharan was born. A few days later, Abhay returned with his parents to their home at 151 Harrison Road. So by the special and very hard work of devotees, so finally, I think last year or year before last, we got this property where Prabhupada was born, and now it is ISKCON's property. And they made a beautiful place over there. They upgraded it, renovated it, and now devotees can go visit that place, see this I don't know if the jackfruit tree is still there or they cut it down or they're going to plant a new one. Something was going on, some talks were going on. So now it is ISKCON's property. An astrologer did a horoscope for the child, and the family was made jubilant by the auspicious reading. The astrologer made a specific prediction that when this child reached the age of 70, he would cross the ocean, become a great exponent of religion, and open 108 temples. So the astrologer had already predicted this, and this really came true. That he opened 108 temples all over the world. Abhay Charan De was born into an India dominated by Victorian imperialism. Calcutta was the capital of India, the seat of the Viceroy, the Earl of Elgin and Kincardine, and the second city of the British Empire. So yes, it was earlier, it was their plan, British, that they wanted Calcutta to be the capital of India. Later it was moved to Delhi. Their plan was Calcutta. Europeans and Indians lived separately, although in business and education they intermingled. The British lived mostly in central Calcutta, amidst their own theatres, racetracks, cricket fields, and fine European buildings. The Indians lived more in North Calcutta. Here the men dressed in dhotis and women in saris, and while remaining loyal to the British Crown, followed their traditional religion and culture. Abhay's home at 151 Harrison Road was in the Indian section of North Calcutta. Abhay's father, Gormon De, was a cloth merchant of moderate income and belonged to the aristocratic Suvarna Vanik merchant community. He was related, however, to the wealthy Malik family, which for hundreds of years had traded in gold and salt with the British. Originally, the Maliks had been members of the De family, a Gotra lineage that traces back to the ancient sage Gautam. But during the Mughal period of pre-British India, a Muslim ruler had conferred the title Malik, or Lord, on a wealthy, influential branch of the De's. Then several generations later, a daughter of De's had married into the Malik family, and the two families had remained close ever since. So De family in traditional line, it comes under Malik. Or Malik comes under De family, but some Malik families, they were given this title Malik by the Muslim rulers because they were influential, they had money, and well, later on, somehow these things are very prominent in India. In America, nobody even cares for all these things. But these are very prominent. Which family, what is your lineage, and this and that. An entire block of properties on either side of Harrison Road belonged to a Lokanath Malik, and Gormohan and his family lived in a few rooms of a three-story building within the Malik properties. Across the street from the De's residence was a Radha Govinda temple, where for the past 150 years the Maliks had maintained worship of the deity of Radha and Krishna. Various shops on the Malik properties provided income for the deity and for the priests conducting the worship. Every morning before breakfast, the Malik family members would visit the temple to see the deity of Radha Govinda. They would offer cooked rice, kachoris, and vegetables on a large platter and would then distribute the prasadam to the deities, morning visitors from the neighborhood. Among the daily visitors was Abhay Charan, accompanying his mother, father, or servant. So Prabhupada had said, I used to ride on the same perambulator with Siddheshwar Malik. He used to call me Moti, or pearl, and his nickname was Subidhi. And the servant pushed us together. If one day this friend did not see me, he would become mad. He would not go in the perambulator without me. We would not separate even for a moment. So perambulator is like the prom. or whatever the cart they call it for the kids. As a servant pushed the baby carriage, okay, so baby carriage, into the wide expanse of Harrison Road, timing his crossing between the bicycles and horse-drawn hackneys, the two children in the pram gazed up at the fair sky and tall trees across the road. Sounds and sights of the hackneys with their large wheels spinning over the road caught the fascinated attention of the two children. The servant steered the carriage towards the arched gateway within the red sandstone wall bordering the Radha Govinda Mandir. And as Abhay and his friend rode underneath the ornate metal arch and into the courtyard, they saw high above them two stone lions, the heralds and protectors of the temple compound, their right paws extended. So obviously, if any of us go to that street, Harrison Road, and to this Radha Govinda temple, we would see all these things, but we would not even think to write in this very fancy and very attractive way. But this is how Swarup Damodar Maharaj, not Swarup Damodar, Satswarup Maharaj, this is how he wrote it, and very fascinating way he has mentioned all this. So it makes a wonderful reading actually. In the courtyard was a circular drive and the oval lawn with lampposts with gas lights and a statue of young women in robes. Sharply chirping sparrows flitted in the shrubs and trees or hopped across the grass, pausing to peck the ground while choruses of pigeons cooed, sometimes abruptly flapping their wings overhead, sailing off to another perch or descending to the courtyard. Voices shattered as Bengalis moved to and fro, dressed in simple cotton saris and white dhotis. Someone paused by the carriage to amuse the golden-skinned boys with its shining dark eyes, but mostly people were passing by quickly, going into the temple. The heavy double doors leading into the inner courtyard were open, and the servant eased the carriage wheels down a foot-deep step and proceeded through the foyer, then down another step and into the bright sunlight of the main courtyard. There they faced a stone statue of Garuda, perched on a 4-foot column. This carrier of Vishnu, Garuda, half man and half bird, kneeled on one knee, his hands folded prayerfully, his eagle's beak strong and his wings poised behind him. The carriage moved ahead past two servants sweeping and washing the stone courtyard. It was just a few paces across the courtyard to the temple. The temple area itself, open like a pavilion, was a raised platform, the stone roof supported by stout pillars 15 feet tall. At the left end of the temple pavilion stood a crowd of worshippers viewing the deities on the altar. The servant pushed the carriage closer, lifted the two boys out, and then holding their hands, escorted them reverentially before the deities. See, so much of detail of the inside the temple he got. I mean, stout pillars, 15 feet tall, Garudaji sitting on a 4 feet tall pillar, and other things. It's amazing. It's just amazing. And then, of course, he must have taken pictures, and to put it down in writing in an attractive way, that's a skill or talent one has to have. Srila Prabhupada, I can remember standing at the doorway of Radha Govinda temple saying prayers to Radha Govinda Murti. I would watch for hours together. The deity was so beautiful with his slanted eyes. Radha and Govinda, freshly bathed and dressed, now stood on their silver throne amidst vases of fragrant flowers. Govinda was about 18 inches high, and Radharani, standing to his left, was slightly smaller. Both were golden, so they were made of brass. Radha and Govinda both stood in the same gracefully curved dancing pose, right leg bent at the knee and right foot placed in front of the left. Radharani, dressed in a lustrous silk sari, held up her reddish right palm in benediction, and Krishna, in a silk jacket and dhoti, played on a golden flute. At Govinda's lotus feet were green tulsi leaves with pulp of sandalwood, hanging around their lordships' necks and reaching down almost to their lotus feet were several garlands of fragrant night-blooming jasmines, delicate trumpet-like blossoms resting lightly on Radha's and Govinda's divine forms. Their necklaces of gold, pearls, and diamonds shimmered. Radharani's bracelets were of gold, and both she and Krishna wore gold-embroidered silk chadars about their shoulders. The flowers in their hands and hair were small and delicate, and the silver crowns on their heads were bedecked with jewels. Radha and Krishna were slightly smiling. Beautifully dressed, dancing on their silver throne beneath a silver canopy and surrounded by flowers, to Abhay they appeared most attractive. Life outside on Harrison Road and beyond was forgotten. In the courtyard, the birds went on chirping and visitors came and went, but Abhay stood silently, absorbed in seeing the beautiful forms of Krishna and Radharani, the Supreme Lord and his eternal consort. Then the kirtan began, devotees chanting and playing on drums and kartals. Abhay and his friend kept watching as the pujaris offered incense, its curling smoke hanging in the air, then a flaming lamp, a conch shell, a handkerchief, flowers, a whisk, and a peacock fan. Finally, the pujari blew the conch shell loudly and the arti ceremony was over. So that was those are some of the, this was like pretty much every day that he would go to the temple like that. When Abhay was 1.5 years old, he fell ill with typhoid. The family physician, Dr. Bose, prescribed chicken broth. No, Gormohan protested, I cannot allow it. Yes, otherwise he will die. But we are not meat eaters, Gormohan pleaded. We cannot prepare chicken in our kitchen. Don't mind, Dr. Bose said. I shall prepare it at my house and bring it in a jar, and you just simply give it to him. Gormohan assented, if it is necessary for my son to live. So the doctor came with his chicken broth and offered it to Abhay, who immediately began to vomit. Means it didn't go inside him. All right, the doctor admitted, never mind, this is no good. Gormohan then threw the chicken broth away, and Abhay gradually recovered from the typhoid without having to eat meat. See, so strict, when his father was strict, but just for Abhay's health, he relented. But still, Krishna's arrangement, Abhay did not eat the chicken soup or chicken broth. On the roof of Abhay's maternal grandmother's house was a little garden with flowers, greenery, and trees. Along with other grandchildren, 2-year-old Abhay took pleasure in watering the plants with a sprinkling can. But his particular tendency was to sit alone amongst the plants. He would find a nice bush and make a sitting place. One day when Abhay was 3, he narrowly escaped a fatal burning. He was playing with matches in front of his house when he caught his cloth on fire. Suddenly a man appeared and put the fire out. Abhay was saved, although he retained a small scar on his leg. So, like every kid, he played with fire. But then his dhoti caught fire. Suddenly a man appeared and put the fire out. In 1900, when Abhay was 4, a vehement plague hit Calcutta. Dozens of people died every day and thousands evacuated the city. When there seemed no way to check the plague, an old Babaji organized Hare Krishna Sankirtan all over Calcutta. Regardless of religion, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, and Parsi all joined, and a large party of chanters traveled from street to street, door to door, chanting the names Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The group arrived at Gaur Mohan's house at 151 Harrison Road, and Gaur Mohan eagerly received them. Although Abhay was a little child, his head reaching only up to the knees of the chanters, he also joined in the dancing. Shortly after this, the plague subsided. So yes, when we chant, all these diseases can also go away, and everything auspicious can happen. So that faith has to be there in chanting of the holy names. But just like during COVID time, we were not allowed to go on the street, but to speak of chanting and dancing. So, but anyway, devotees chanted from their homes, and of course, government did whatever they had to do. So, although many devotees also died because of COVID, but nevertheless, chanting always helps, always. Gaur Mohan was a pure Vaishnava, and he raised his son to be Krishna conscious. Since his own parents had also been Vaishnavas, Gaur Mohan had never touched meat, fish, eggs, tea, or coffee. His complexion was fair and his disposition reserved. At night, he would lock up his cloth shop, set a bowl of rice in the middle of the floor to satisfy the rats, so they would not chew the cloth in their hunger and return home. So yeah, this is something he did. So he would put a bowl of rice in the middle of the floor. So the rats are always there, and especially the cloth merchant. So if they're hungry, they would come eat the rice, and if they are satisfied, they would not touch the cloths. So when he would return home, he would read from Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the main scriptures of Bengali Vaishnavas, chant on his japa beads, and worship the deity of Lord Krishna. He was gentle and affectionate and would never punish Abhay. Even when obliged to correct him, Gaur Mohan would first apologize. You are my son, so now I must correct you. It is my duty. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's father would chastise him, so don't mind. Srila Prabhupada, my father's income was no more than 250 rupees, but there was no question of need. In the mango season, when we were children, we would run through the house playing and we would grab mangoes as we were running through. And all through the day, we would eat mangoes. We wouldn't have to think, can I have a mango? My father always provided food. Mangoes were 1 rupee a dozen. Well, obviously, it was 1900, so 124 years ago. Life was simple, but there was always plenty. We were middle class, but receiving 4 or 5 guests daily. My father gave 4 daughters in marriage, and there was no difficulty for him. Maybe it was not a very luxurious life, but there was no scarcity of food or shelter or cloth. Daily he purchased 2.5 kilograms of milk. He did not like to purchase retail, but would purchase a year's supply of coal by the cartload. We were happy not that because we did not purchase a motor car, we were unhappy. My father used to say, God has 10 hands. If he wants to take away from you with 2 hands, how much can you protest? And when he wants to give you with 10 hands, then with your 2 hands, how much can you take? My father would rise a little late, around 7 or 8. Then after taking bath, he would go purchasing. Then from 10 o'clock to 1 in the afternoon, he was engaged in puja. Then he would take his lunch and go to the business. And then in the business shop, he would take a little rest for 1 hour. That is some business. Go to shop after having lunch. And then even at business, he would take a 1 hour nap. He would come home from business at 10 o'clock at night. It was open pretty late. And then again, he would do puja. Actually, his real business was puja. For livelihood, he did some business, but puja was his main business. We would be sleeping and father would be doing arati. Ding, ding, ding. We would hear the bell and wake up and see him bowing down before Krishna. Gaur Mohan wanted Vaishnav goals for his son. He wanted Abhay to become a servant of Radharani, to become a preacher of the Bhagavatam, and to learn the devotional art of playing Mridanga. So he wanted Abhay or Prabhupada to learn to play Mridanga. He regularly received sadhus in his house, and he would always ask them, please bless my son so that Srimati Radharani may be pleased with him and grant him her blessings. Enjoying each other's company, father and son used to walk as far as 10 miles, saving the 5 paisa tram fare. On the beach, they used to see a yogi who for years had sat in one spot without moving. One day, the yogi's son was sitting there and people had gathered around. The son was taking over his father's sitting place. Gaur Mohan gave the yogis a donation and asked their blessings for his son. When Abhay's mother said she wanted him to become a British lawyer when he grew up, which meant he would have to go to London to study, one of the Malik uncles thought it was a good idea. But Gaur Mohan would not hear of it. If Abhay went to England, he would be influenced by European dress and manners. He will learn drinking and women hunting. Gaur Mohan objected, I do not want his money. From the beginning of Abhay's life, Gaur Mohan had introduced his plan. He had hired a professional Mridanga player to teach Abhay the standard rhythms for accompanying Kirtan. Rajani had been skeptical. Rajani was Abhay's mother. What is the purpose of teaching such a young child to play Mridanga? It is not important. But Gaur Mohan had his dream of his son who would grow up singing bhajans, playing Mridanga, and speak on Srimad Bhagavatam. When Abhay sat to play the Mridanga, even with his left and right arms extended as far as he could, his small hands would barely reach the drum heads at the opposite ends of the drum. With his right wrist, he would flick his hand just as his teacher instructed, and his fingers would make a high-pitched sound, teeny, teeny, ta. And then he would strike the left drum head with his open left hand, boom, boom. With practice and age, he was gradually learning the basic rhythms, and Gaur Mohan looked on with pleasure. So that was his father's dream for him to become Mridanga player, sing bhajan, preach Bhagavatam, nothing else. Abhay was an acknowledged pet child for both his parents. In addition to his childhoods named Moti, Nandulal, Nandu, and Kocha, his grandmother called him Kachori Mukhi because of his fondness for kachoris, spicy vegetable stuffed fried pastries popular in Bengal. Both his grandmother and mother would give him kachoris, which he would kept in the many pockets of his little vest. He liked to watch the vendors cooking on the busy roadside and accept kachoris from them and from the neighbors until all the inside and outside pockets of his vest were filled. So he was Kachori Mukhi, he was called Kachori Mukhi. So many kachoris he would like to eat. So that is why on Prabhupada appearance and disappearance day, one of the things devotees cook is kachoris for him. Sometimes when Abhay demanded that his mother make him kachoris, he would refuse. Once she even sent him to bed. When Gaur Mohan came home and asked, where is Abhay? Rajani explained how he had been too demanding and she had sent him to bed without kachoris. No, we should make them for him. His father replied, and he woke Abhay and personally cooked puris and kachoris for him. Gaur Mohan was always lenient with Abhay and careful to see that his son got whatever he wanted. When Gaur Mohan returned home at night, it was his practice to take a little puffed rice, and Abhay would also sometimes sit with his father, eating puffed rice. Once at the cost of 6 rupees, now 6 rupees, that time was lots of money, Gaur Mohan brought bought Abhay a pair of shoes imported from England. And each year, through a friend who traveled back and forth from Kashmir, Gormohan would present his son a Kashmiri shawl with a fancy hand-sewn border. One day in the market, Abhay saw a toy gun he wanted. His father said no, and Abhay started to cry. All right, Gormohan said. And he bought the gun. Then Abhay wanted another gun. You already have one, his father said. Why do you want another one? Oh, one for each hand. Abhay cried, and he lay down in the street, kicking his feet. When Gormohan agreed to get the second gun, Abhay was pacified. So nothing new. All kids are like that. Abhay's mother, Rajani, was 30 years old when he was born. Like her husband, she came from a long-established Gaudiya Vaishnava family. She was dark-skinned than her husband, whereas his disposition was cool, hers tended to be fiery. Abhay saw his mother and father living together peacefully. No deep marital conflict or complicated dissatisfaction ever threatened home. Rajani was chaste and religious-minded, a model housewife in the traditional Vedic sense, dedicated to caring for her husband and children. Abhay observed his mother's simple and touching attempts to ensure, by prayers, by vows, and even by rituals, that he continued to live. Whenever he was to go out, even to play, his mother, after dressing him, would put a drop of saliva on a finger and touch it to his forehead. Abhay never knew the significance of this act, but because she was his mother and he stood submissively, like a dog with its master, while she did it. and also, as Abhay's Prabhupada said earlier, or Maharaj said, I think he had 4 or 5 sisters, but he was the only boy in the family. Like Gormohan, Rajani treated Abhay as the pet child, but whereas her husband expressed his love through leniency and plans for his son's spiritual success, she expressed hers through attempts to safeguard Abhay from all danger, disease, and death. She once offered blood from her breast to one of the demigods with the supplication that Abhay be protected on all sides from danger. So mothers can do anything for the child. At Abhay's birth, now this is again something very significant. She had made a vow to eat with her left hand until the day her son would notice and ask her why was she eating with the wrong hand. One day when little Abhay actually asked, she immediately stopped. It had been just another prescription for his survival, for she thought that by the strength of her vow, he would continue to grow, at least until he asked her about the vow. Had he not asked, she would never again have eaten with her right hand, and according to her superstition, he would have gone on living protected by her vow. Amazing. For his protection, she also put an iron bangle around his leg. His playmates asked him what it was. And Abhay self-consciously went to his mother and demanded, open this bangle. When she said, I'll do it later, he began to cry. No, now. Once Abhay swallowed a watermelon seed and his friends told him it would grow in his stomach into a watermelon. He ran to his mother, who assured him he didn't have to worry. She would say a mantra to protect him. Srila Prabhupada, Mother Yashoda would chant mantras in the morning to protect Krishna from all dangers throughout the day. When Krishna killed some demon, she thought it was due to her chanting. My mother would do a similar thing with me. His mother would often take him to Ganga and personally bathe him. She also gave him a food supplement known as Horlicks. So Horlicks has been there since 1900s. When he got dysentery, she cured it with hot puris and fried eggplant with salt. Though sometimes when he was ill, Abhay would show his obstinacy by refusing to take any medicine. But just as he was stubborn, his mother was determined, and she would forcibly administer medicine into his mouth, though sometimes it took 3 assistants to hold him down. So this thing about hot puris and fried eggplant with salt, even though he got dysentery and she would feed him this food, but he would get okay. This even happened when he was very old, and Prabhupada's sister, Pishima, came to see him. I believe it was in Vrindavan. And he was sick, and she served him hot puris and fried eggplant. Either it was Vrindavan or Mayapur, I don't remember. So, and all the devotees, they were surprised. How can you feed him puri and eggplant when he is sick? And she was like, Pishima was like, oh, you don't know my brother. If he wants, he can even digest the rocks. And he got okay. Prabhupada got okay after eating that. But he told his disciple, do not try this. Only my sister can do that. So anyway, so many stories are there. So we'll stop and see anybody else questions or comments.
वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग एंड नाइस मुझे मेरा तो ऐसे लग रहा था कि सुनते जाऊं बस आई डिडंट रियलाइज कि टाइम इतना हो गया थैंक यू सो मच नाइस गुड
Okay, thank you, Martha. Thank you.
थैंक यू
All are safe and wonderful.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
जय श्री प्रभुपाद